Give the kid a weapon.
When you hear Men in Black, you probably picture Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. Sharp suits, neuralizers, and witty banter while saving the world from galactic scum. It's a fun, heroic Hollywood fantasy. But strip away the blockbuster gloss, and the true origins of the Men in Black are deeply unsettling. Long before Hollywood got its hands on them, the Men in Black were the terrifying specters of early UFO lore. Pale, awkward, threatening figures with ill-fitting clothes and a mechanical way of speaking. They didn't come to erase your memory to protect you. They came to silence you through fear. This isn't a story about secret agents policing aliens. It's a psychological thriller about Cold War paranoia, elaborate hoaxes, and the fragile human mind trying to make sense of the unknown. Who were the real Men in Black? Let's decode this mystery. World War II had recently ended, but the existential dread of the atomic bomb hung heavy over the American consciousness. The Cold War was brewing, and the skies, once a source of wonder, were suddenly perceived as a potential vector for Soviet attack. It was within this atmosphere of heightened national anxiety that the modern UFO era was born. In June 1947, a private pilot named Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 shining disc-like objects flying at supersonic speeds past Mount Rainier in Washington state. He described their motion as skipping like saucers over water. The press seized the phrase, coining the term flying saucers and sending the public into a frenzy. The government scrambled to investigate, and civilians kept their eyes glued to the clouds. But the very first seed of the Men in Black mythos was actually planted days before Kenneth Arnold's famous flight, just a few miles away. It all started with 2 men. On June 21st, 1947, Harold Dahl was allegedly salvaging stray logs near Maury Island in Puget Sound, Washington. According to Dahl, he looked up to see 6 massive donut-shaped aircraft hovering ominously in the sky above his boat. Suddenly, one of the crafts began to violently expel hot, dark metallic slag. The falling debris reportedly struck his boat, tragically killing his dog and burning his son's arm. Dahl rushed back to shore and recounted the harrowing tale to his supervisor, Fred Krisman. But the story didn't end with falling slag. The very next morning, Dahl claimed he was visited by a mysterious figure. The man was dressed impeccably in a dark suit and drove a pristine, black 1947 Buick. The stranger invited Dahl to a local diner for breakfast. Over the meal, the man in the dark suit chillingly recounted the exact details of the Maury Island incident. Mind you, it's the details Dahl hadn't yet shared with anyone but Krisman. Then came the chilling warning. The man explicitly told Dahl that if he loved his family and valued their safety, he would never speak of the flying donuts or the metallic slag again. Here, the archetype was forged: the man in the dark suit, the black car, the impossible knowledge, and the threat of violence. But when we ground this mystery in historical fact, the narrative fractures. As the story gained traction, the FBI and the newly formed U.S. Air Force launched a rigorous investigation into Maury Island. J. Edgar Hoover's agents quickly unraveled the tale. They discovered that the metallic slag was nothing more than ordinary rock from a local smelter. The entire incident was a calculated hoax orchestrated by Dahl and Krisman, likely an attempt to drum up a lucrative story to sell to a UFO-obsessed magazine. The authorities concluded it was a total fabrication. Yet, the truth of the hoax didn't matter to the American public. The psychological seed was successfully planted. The concept of the man in a dark suit intimidating witnesses into silence was out there, and it was waiting for the right moment to bloom. If the Maury Island hoax planted the seed of the Men in Black, a man named Albert K. Bender watered it into a sprawling, terrifying tree. In the early 1950s, Bridgeport, Connecticut, was home to Albert Bender, a mild-mannered factory clerk who lived with his stepfather. Bender was a fascinating character, a deeply dedicated horror enthusiast, a collector of esoteric occult artifacts, and a man obsessed with the rapidly growing flying saucer phenomenon. In 1952, Bender channeled his passions into founding the International Flying Saucer Bureau, IFSB. It was the world's first major civilian UFO organization, complete with its own publication, the Space Review. The IFSB was a massive, immediate success, rapidly gaining hundreds of members across the globe and establishing international branches. Bender was at the peak of his influence in the nascent world of ufology. But in 1953, the momentum inexplicably slammed into a brick wall. At the height of the club's success, Bender abruptly and inexplicably shut the entire operation down. The final issue of the Space Review contained a cryptic, chilling message. The mystery of the flying saucers is no longer a mystery. The source is already known. But any information about this is being withheld by order from a higher source. Bender claimed he had finally deduced the true origin of UFOs and had drafted an essay revealing his findings. But before he could publish it, he was stopped. When pressed by friends and fellow UFO researchers, a terrified Bender revealed that he had been visited by 3 men dressed in dark suits. But these were not the polite, albeit threatening, government agents of the Maury Island hoax. Bender's encounter was distinctly otherworldly. He claimed the men materialized in his bedroom. They possessed glowing eyes that shone like flashlights in the dark. According to Bender, they didn't speak aloud. They communicated telepathically, plunging him into a sudden, debilitating state of physical sickness, complete with migraines and extreme nausea. Through this psychic assault, they threatened him into absolute silence. It is incredibly easy to dismiss him as a crackpot or a hoaxer, seeking a dramatic exit from a club he could no longer manage. However, historians and psychologists offer a more nuanced, deeply empathetic view. Bender was a highly imaginative man, caught squarely in the crosshairs of early Cold War paranoia. The early 1950s was an era defined by McCarthyism, aggressive government surveillance, and genuine fear of communist infiltration. Furthermore, the US government was actively monitoring civilian UFO groups at this time, concerned that they could clog communication channels or be used by Soviet intelligence to spread mass panic. Whether Bender suffered a profound mental breakdown, triggered by intense stress and an obsession with the occult, whether he was actually intimidated by real government intelligence agents testing the waters of civilian networks, or whether it was a pure fabrication, one thing remains clear: Bender's terror felt acutely real to him. His story shifted the men in black from mere government agents to figures of terrifying, almost supernatural power. He set the concrete foundation for the modern men in black mythology. Every great legend needs a promoter, and the Men in Black found theirs in Gray Barker. Barker was a former associate of Albert Bender and the chief investigator for the IFSB. A theatrical man with a keen eye for what the public desired, Barker recognized the sensational, highly marketable value of Bender's terrifying tale. When Bender shut down the IFSB and retreated into frightened silence, Barker stepped into the spotlight. In 1956, Barker published a seminal piece of UFO literature. They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers. This book was the catalyst that pushed the Men in Black from the fringes of UFO club newsletters into the mainstream cultural consciousness. Barker was a masterful storyteller. He didn't just recount Bender's encounter, he weaponized the myth. Barker took the isolated, disparate incidents of Harold Dahl's dark-suited diner companion and Albert Bender's telepathic bedroom invaders and wove them together. He coined the concept of the Silence Group, a massive, shadowy, interconnected global conspiracy operating above the law to suppress the truth about extraterrestrial visitations. Barker's narrative was irresistible. It tapped directly into the anti-establishment undercurrents of the era. But when we pull back the curtain and examine the academic and historical reality, a different picture emerges. The truth is, Gray Barker was a known prankster, an opportunist, and a man who deeply understood the profit motive of the paranormal. Privately, he was skeptical of the very phenomena he wrote about. To Barker, ufology was a business, and conspiracies sold better than mundane truths. Archival evidence and confessions from his contemporaries reveal that Barker actively fabricated government letters, embellished mundane sightings, and orchestrated elaborate hoaxes to keep the mystery alive and the book sales flowing. The mystery deepens, but not in the way believers might hope. The Men in Black were largely propelled into the American mainstream not by empirical facts or genuine whistleblowers, but by early pop culture grifters. Barker capitalized on the public's thirst for conspiracies, realizing that an unprovable, terrifying, overarching secret society was a gold mine. The Men in Black were no longer just a symptom of one man's paranoia. They were now a highly profitable product. As the 1950s bled into the 1960s, the Men in Black evolved once again. They moved from the realm of government conspiracy into what ufologists call high strangeness. This transformation was spearheaded by the legendary journalist and paranormal investigator John Keel. In the late 1960s, Keel descended upon Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to investigate a string of bizarre sightings surrounding a winged, red-eyed creature known as the Mothman. His investigation, later immortalized in his book The Mothman Prophecies, uncovered an absolute maelstrom of paranormal activity, UFO sightings, and, most notably, aggressive Men in Black encounters. But Keel's Men in Black were radically different from the sharp-suited FBI stand-ins of the previous decade. Keel's research plunged the Men in Black deep into the uncanny valley. Witnesses in Point Pleasant and across the country reported terrifying figures that seemed to merely mimic humanity, and doing a poor job of it. These Men in Black were described as looking remarkably like corpses. Witnesses reported them having unusually olive or sallow skin, completely hairless bodies, and slightly bulging eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. Their clothing was crisp and pristine, but bizarrely outdated, as if they had raided a wardrobe from decades past. Most unsettling of all was their behavior. They spoke in flat, monotone, mechanical voices. They moved stiffly, lacking fluid human articulation. Keel documented absurd, chilling interactions, where these beings demonstrated a complete lack of understanding of basic human concepts. In one famous account, a Men in Black visited a witness, saw a bowl of Jell-O on the counter, and attempted to drink it like a liquid. In another, a Men in Black was profoundly fascinated by a simple ballpoint pen, staring at it as if it were alien technology. Through these deeply weird encounters, Keel developed the ultra-terrestrial theory. He hypothesized that the Men in Black, and indeed, UFOs and cryptids themselves, were not physical beings from outer space. Instead, he argued they were ultra-terrestrials, meaning entities from other dimensions or realities sharing our exact geographic space. According to Keel, these beings have manipulated human perception throughout history, masquerading as whatever our culture currently fears most: fairies and demons in the Middle Ages, and spacemen and government agents in the atomic age. This chapter of the Men in Black lore leans heavily into horror. It suggests that the Men in Black are not trying to hide government secrets. They are trying, and failing, to blend into our reality to observe us like lab rats. While interdimensional voyeurs make for a thrilling narrative, science and psychology offer a vastly different, yet equally fascinating explanation for the Men in Black. To truly understand who they are, we must pivot to the psychosocial hypothesis. In the academic study of folklore and ufology, the psychosocial hypothesis suggests that large-scale UFO and Men in Black sightings are not physical, external realities. Instead, they are the physical manifestations of profound cultural and psychological distress. They are waking dreams birthed by societal trauma. Let's look at the Cold War paranoia that birthed the Men in Black. In the 1950s, Americans were terrified of the Soviet KGB, but they were equally wary of the rapid, shadowy expansion of their own intelligence agencies, the newly formed CIA and the ever-watchful FBI. The aesthetic of the Men in Black is no accident. The dark suit, the fedora, the featureless black sedan, these were the literal hallmarks of the 1950s G-Man. The Men in Black represent the ultimate fear of the surveillance state. When citizens felt powerless against the crushing weight of a secretive government, their subconscious minds manifested that fear into the archetype of the Men in Black. They are the bogeymen of bureaucracy. But what about the physical encounters? The telepathy? The glowing eyes in the bedroom? Science points directly to ancient neurological phenomena, specifically sleep paralysis and hypnagogic hallucinations. During sleep paralysis, a person awakens from REM sleep, but remains physically immobilized. This state is frequently accompanied by profound terror, a feeling of a crushing weight on the chest, and vivid, incredibly realistic hallucinations of intruders in the room. Throughout human history, long before the Men in Black, different cultures reported these exact night terrors. In the Middle Ages, victims claimed they were visited by demons and incubi. In Newfoundland, it was the Old Hag. In other cultures, it was shadow people, or jinn. The human brain, locked in a state of primal panic, desperately tries to rationalize the physiological sensation of an invisible intruder. It pulls imagery from the cultural zeitgeist to give the terror a face. In 1400, that face was a demon. In 1953, at the height of the atomic age and government paranoia, Albert Bender's brain reached into his subconscious and pulled out 3 men in dark suits. The Men in Black are, quite literally, the modern atomic age skin draped over an ancient neurological glitch. So, how did a terrifying, pale, sleep paralysis demon that threatens people in the dead of night become Will Smith in a tailored suit, making quips while fighting giant cockroaches? The journey from paranoia to pop culture required a massive process of sanitization. The transition began in 1990 with a comic book writer named Lowell Cunningham. A friend introduced Cunningham to the obscure John Keel and Gray Barker folklore of the Men in Black. Fascinated, Cunningham created the Men in Black comic series. In Cunningham's original vision, the Men in Black were still a dark, morally bankrupt, global intelligence agency. They didn't just erase memories, they routinely murdered witnesses, suppressed benevolent alien technology to keep humanity dependent, and operated in a grim, violent world. It was a cynical reflection of real government conspiracy theories. But when Hollywood producers Walter F. Parks and Laurie McDonald optioned the comic, they realized that a grim tale of government assassination wouldn't sell summer blockbuster tickets. By the time director Barry Sonnenfeld and the charismatic duo of Smith and Jones got hold of the property for the 1997 film, the myth was completely transformed. The Men in Black were no longer the villains suppressing the truth. They were the heroic, overworked beat cops of the universe, protecting innocent civilians from the horrors of the galaxy. The terrifying, mechanical, corpse-like ghouls of John Keel's research were replaced by sleek, cool, Ray-Ban-wearing heroes. Why did we allow this narrative shift to happen? Because it serves as a massive cultural coping mechanism. The true origins of the Men in Black are deeply uncomfortable. They force us to confront the reality of government overreach, the vulnerability of the human mind to hallucinations, and the terrifying vastness of what we don't know about the universe. By turning our deepest paranoias into buddy cop popcorn entertainment, we strip the myth of its power. Laughing at the Men in Black, wearing their sunglasses on Halloween, and quoting their movie lines is far easier than lying awake at night, wondering if the dark sedan parked down the street is watching you. Hollywood didn't just sanitize the Men in Black, they gave us a way to conquer our fear of them. The Men in Black are the ultimate modern myth. They started as a bizarre excuse for a closed UFO club by Albert Bender, were amplified into a lucrative conspiracy by Gray Barker, and were transformed into interdimensional horrors by John Keel. Finally, Hollywood sanitized them, turning our deepest paranoias about government overreach and the unknown into popcorn entertainment. Whether they were just FBI agents intimidating witnesses, elaborate hoaxes, or hallucinations triggered by Cold War anxiety, the Men in Black reflect a very real human fear that someone or something is watching us, and that the truth is being hidden. So, the next time you see a dark sedan slowly pull up to your curb, ask yourself, is it just a government official or something much stranger? If you enjoyed diving into this mystery with us, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know your Men in Black theories in the comments below. Stay curious.